I think it's still morning. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Yeah, so I suppose my perspective on this comes very much as the chief exec of a local Age Connects organisation, which may be more widely known to some of you as formerly as Age Concern. We provide services across the Morgannwg region, and I hear feedback from my team members every day about the impact that the fear of the virus, but also the impact of the restrictions on daily life, and what those impacts have been. And it is so broad, it is so wide ranging, and everybody has experienced this in a different way. They may all be older people that we support, but they've all experienced the last 6 months, and in areas that are now that have gone back into restrictions, and they continue to experience that. And I think the second time round is actually worse in some respects, because it's so localized, and the feedback that we're getting from older people living in those areas that are experiencing the current restrictions is that it feels much more closer to home, which I think is really interesting. People know it's in their villages, they know that it's in their towns. They're not just, it's not just a case of saying, you can go out and shop, and they say, but we don't want to because we're afraid to go out and shop. And I think that adds another dimension to the impact that I think we're going to see having quite far-reaching and long-term effects. So, Commissioner, the report that you've produced says everything that we know is happening, and asks for changes to be made through your recommendations. So the report is welcome and certainly timely. I mean, the big question is, are we heading into effectively another national lockdown as local authorities place restrictions? And I know that we are trying through messaging not to refer to the local restrictions as other lockdowns. We are saying that locally, we're saying that we're under restrictions, but I think just under half of the local authority areas in Wales, or it may be half now, are under restrictions, with more to come, no doubt, as the virus travels. I could see lots of information and lots of questions and comments in the chat about the lack of community engagement, the activity that's still not available through community centres, and probably in the main through local authority run community centres. And I know that local authorities are trying their hardest to get those community venues back up and running, so that people can continue to receive the support that they want from the people that they know and in the way that they want it. So that face-to-face is very, very important. And once a week, when I finished the day job, I telephone befriend a lady that lives in Mountain Ash, just over the mountain from me. She lives alone, she's unmarried, she has no children. And we talk for sometimes half an hour, sometimes up to an hour, about how she feels and how she's coping with it all. What she misses is the chapel. She misses the community centre. She misses the library, even though the library, thankfully, has reopened with excellent health and safety measures in place. But what she says is that she just goes and picks up her book in a sanitised bag, and she gets back in her car and she goes home. And what she misses is chatting about the book that she's chosen that time with other people in the library. And as Margaret, said it much more eloquently than I could. It's that kind of contact that people are really missing, and that's what's having the impact on their emotional well-being. And I think as well, in terms of what we're getting is people saying, to our support workers, can you just take me out for a walk? Because what I'm really missing is going out safely and feeling that I'm okay, and I'm out and I'm not coming into contact with anybody, but I feel like I need to stretch my legs. And for lots of older people who may struggle with their mobility, that kind of support is really important. I think, the question I keep asking myself is, what price are we going to pay in the long term for all of the restrictions that are in place? How much of local transformation programme funding, ICF funding, if there's any left, and other core funding, mainstream funding from local authorities and health boards, is now going to be diverted into genuine preventative support. There's lots of money going into social prescribing, and you know, that has its place. But if there's nowhere to prescribe to, if third sector organisations, community groups aren't able to actually function because they've either folded or they haven't got the means and the core sustainable funding to deliver those services, then actually what I think we are doing is just storing up problems that will eventually reach the GP, will reach the hospital door, will reach the single point of access and the assessment process. And my fear is that we will, without even realising it, we will push people into a system that is trying to actually not encourage them to come into the system. You know, once you're in the system, it is much more time consuming. It's much more difficult, and often I think individual cases tend to get worse once they're in the system. Because you have to comply with all of the various assessment process. So I would really like to see some of that that approach to assessment, which we know has been affected. You know, a lot of assessments were either stopped or were reduced, and lots of people's packages of care were stopped or reduced. We need that to be addressed quite quickly, but we also need some investment in finding out exactly what the impact has been on people who are not in the system, because ultimately we really want to try and reduce the risk or prevent them going into local authority or health systems. With regards to digital, I mean, I think it's interesting that all of the comments in the chat, you know, recognise the importance of digital. Margaret recognised the importance of digital connections. But again, I think it's going to require huge investment. And it's something that, in fact, my own organisation struggled to adapt to as an organisation, because our MO, our model is face-to-face. And so it isn't just a case of making sure that older people are equipped with the kit and the knowledge and the training and the understanding. The organisations that are there to support them need to also have that investment. And we were very fortunate. The Digital Communities Wales, which I know are cited in the report, you know, they were an incredible support to us and help, and continue to be through the Pathfinder project that we have with them. I just wanted to pick up on the point about, this is from a regional partnership board sort of test, trace and protect point of view, if I may, very quickly. You know, we've talked about how different groups within communities are communicated with. One of the things that I often say to colleagues in public health when we're talking about messaging about the virus and about the restrictions and the guidelines and the testing requirements is, when we're in that conversation as public health professionals or people who see that guidance all of the time, it is the easiest thing in the world to understand. And even I sometimes am not sure. But when we are trying to convey that message to people whose first language isn't English, or people who have additional learning needs, people who have a cognitive issue or dementia, people who are just not connected in the same way as those of us who live and breathe this every day, we need to take a step out of where we are and say, okay, you know, how are we going to get these messages across? How are we going to support older people to assimilate all of the information they get through the media, some of which isn't always correct, some of which is dramatized or sensationalized, and it all adds to the fear. But I think that there's a grant available from Welsh Government to support BAME support workers across Wales to make sure that we connect to BAME groups and that we make sure that we understand what their challenges are culturally, you know, from a language point of view and economically. And you know, a lot of the work that we need to do is with the elders of those community groups to make sure that they feel that they can filter that through into their wider families and wider networks.